Ah, good evening, friend. Welcome back. This is part 3 of the Rogue Level Guide. This time going into the end game, the Grand Dungeon, the good old times splishing and splashing with all the elements. So in this, we will go over the different skills that rogues have access to, depending on the class you went, as well as a few other hints and a little bit of the Bestiary, just to give you some tips on some of the enemies uh, um, that are present. And for starters, I want to go over your equipment, your gear, and all that. Now, I don't like giving hard numbers or you have to be this certain stat to succeed or what have you. Think of them as guidelines, things that, if you don't have them, it's okay, but if you do, then great, right? Um, so for starters, it also depends on what type of rogue you are, right? I'm going to be focusing mostly on the glass cannon rogue. Glass cannon rogue being rogues that have next to no defense and have a lot of dexterity and strength and whatnot. So this character is kind of not that. It's kind of more of a bruiser, kind of having some defenses, some endurance, especially. Um, but the same sort of uh, general rules and stuff will apply to both. I can't I can't find words right now. Right, so I will say because Grand Dungeon is much more tanky than floor 8. Floor 8 and below, just the normal dungeons, you didn't really have to worry about your attack or magic. You didn't need a whole lot. You can kind of just use whatever you get from your strength or will in the tree, and that was enough. But in Grand Dungeon, not only is it a long dungeon at 16 rooms, which you're likely not going to be able to complete when you hit level 80. Um, Not only that, but a lot of enemies kind of encourage you to kill them before they do bad things to you. Just a few of them, anyway. But yeah, all enemies, with the exception of the glass cannons, are pretty beefy. They have some pretty good defense and some pretty decent health compared to the floor 8 and below. Um, so because of that, you will kind of want more attack than normal. Now, I will say for most characters, having 900 attack or magic will really help getting past the first 8 rooms. Because enemies level up as you go deeper in. So the first 4 rooms, enemies are level 80, and then they go to 85, and then I believe they jump up to 95 after that. The next 4 rooms, the room 9 to 12. But just having 900 attack or magic will really help get through that pretty. Well, I wouldn't say easily. Things could still happen, but just smoothly. There's a better term. Um, so that's the one thing. Now, because rogues don't usually have the highest attack, I would say 800 is okay if you have a really good critical chance, right? Um, and when you hit Grand Dungeon, you can't rely on your crits too often. I mean, you kind of can, depending on how you build your rogue. But if if you're kind of building it to where it's a balance of attack and crit chance, you're not going to be able to rely on your crits too much. So having that 900 attack will make things easier, right? Um, so that's that. For the glass cannons, I would say definitely have at least 1100, maybe 1200 crit chance. That is assuming you put points into dexterity. Uh, because, yeah, like what, like 50 dexterity, 60 dexterity. It's like 240 extra crit chance. So yeah, that'd be around 1200 compared to my crit chance. Now the crit gear I have here, you can kind of get all this before Grand Dungeon. Actually, I think there's only like 2 crit pieces that you get in Grand Dungeon that are actual upgrades, but the rest can be gotten at floor 8 and below. Yeah, so a quick side note: this portal armband is a secret drop. Really good thing for any rogue. Once you hit floor 7, do the floor 4 player made dungeons, the challenge dungeons. It drops from there. Just a quick tidbit. But anyway, so you try to have around 1200 crit chance, which is 60%, I believe, crit chance, not counting critical shooting and what have you. So that's for the glass cannons. Try to have some crit power. At some point, crit power does kind of. I wouldn't say it has diminishing return. It's just that you're not going to notice the difference. Like I have 30 here. I would kind of say that's around the time where getting like 10 extra crit power isn't really going to make a huge difference. I mean, it will make a difference, but it's hard to notice. So I try to have at least 30, maybe 40, depending on what kind of gear you can come across. I know I'm missing a water sword from a dungeon keeper that has a lot of crit chance and crit power. Comes from floor 7 multiplayer. It's like a water katana. That's like the best crit weapon for most rogues, right? So yeah, that's for the glass cannons. Now for the bruisers and the people that kind of like to not die in like 3 hits, like this build. I would try. I would say at least try to get to 150 defense and magic defense. It helps when you don't have as much crit chance and enemies are hitting pretty hard. Yeah, because at floor 8, enemies still hit pretty hard. At Grand Dungeon, they keep that damage, but they just have much more health. So having some defense helps in that regard. And I wouldn't really worry about your agility and your evasion. It's really hard to stack that up on equipment. When you're trying to get some, or when you're trying to build your attack and crit chance and all that, not many pieces have a good agility or evasion on them. Same with health. I mean, health builds are a thing, but Rogue doesn't really do that too well. And lastly, for all rogues, any rogues, try to have at least 100 heal power, especially the glass cannons. See, like glass cannon may be really rough in solo, but one way you can offset that, or at least mitigate that, is having really good heal power. Heal power multiplying your lifesteal skills by a certain percentage. So, like every 100 is 33%. That's an extra third of your lifesteal, just given to you. It does cap at 100% though, so keep that in mind. So you can't steal more than the enemy has, of course, but having just some heal power really helps. And plus, it'll boost your mystical strike healing, which, because you don't have any defense, or like your defense isn't going to hamper that, because defenses do reduce the healing received from percent HP based healing, not your lifesteal. Your lifesteal is only mitigated by the damage you deal to an enemy. Right, so that is sort of the gear. Now, one other small thing. Before, and I guess usually, a lot of my rogues use an earth weapon, and I would say earth is very useful all-rounder as an earth weapon, because there's a lot of synergies in Grand Dungeon when it comes to using an earth weapon for a crit build. A lot of enemies become easier to deal with and whatnot. However, on this build, I have a water weapon. mainly because I like to have a balance of elements, right? And the build I'm going for, which currently is all into Ranger, and then it's going to go into, well, it's already gone into Bard, then it's going to go into Monk for the rest of it. I'm going to have a fair amount of Earth skills to throw around, but I'm only going to have Rooster Crow and technically Piercing Arrow for water skills, so uh, I have a water weapon just to keep the elements balanced. So I'll have slash to deal water damage whenever I run out of Rooster Crows, essentially. But that's the thing. So most rogues, especially assassin, would likely, or assassin and monk actually, would likely want a water weapon just because their nuke skills like Sneaky Trap and Monkey Cloud are water, and they're only water. So uh, if you have a water weapon, you can build up your water power, and those skills will do a lot more damage, essentially. So that's, excuse me, so that is gear. Right, so I guess we'll go into the tree here. Now, before I believe I went into the basic rogue and also some of the advanced rogue stuff. So the piercing arrow, grappling hook, and poison blow. And I believe I went into the entry skills to the monk and bard. But I haven't gone into the specific skills yet. So, I mean, if you're at this point, you likely already have a path picked out and you're just kind of adding in because you get 150 points in this game at level 100. So you can kind of pick and choose where those extra 50 points go. Um, so here I'll kind of go into these specifics, right? And I guess I'll start with Ranger now. Ranger, like I said before, is kind of the most forgiving rogue. Their whole thing is mostly reliability and maybe some, I guess, versatility too. So rogues, I guess we'll start with the first, or start with the first skill. Rangers, I should say. Uh, they've got a lot of nice things that really complement rogue as well. So first we have Hunter's Mark. Now Hunter's Mark is a defense debuff, in like a big one too. It will reduce your opponent's defenses by -2 and -1. That's what these little red down arrows, like that's old slang for back when uh, these red arrows were just a -2, next to the shield, and people got confused because they thought it just reduces, or buffs and debuffs were just flat numbers, but no, they're kind of um, it's not represented that way. It's just saying that it reduces it by a fair amount, right? Um, so -2 and -1 physical defense debuff is pretty big. I know a lot of rogues in practice, they will go into warrior just to get wolf blow because defense debuffs are pretty strong. A lot of tanky enemies are really, really tanky, and even for glass cannons, they will hurt you, even though they are tank enemies. So having wolf blow on a rogue tends to help people a lot. But when you're ranger, you just have one for yourself. So I mean, I guess you could get both if you really wanted to, which I have before. It's pretty nifty there. Um, so that's no other rogue gets okay. Well, bard gets one too, but it doesn't do damage, so it's a little less impactful, I guess. So that's Hunter's Mark, really useful skill. 3 charges. It does light damage, but that's fine. And yeah, just powerful skill to have, right? Like arguably the best skill they have, to be honest. So then there is Arrow Storm. Arrow Storm hits twice. It does medium damage over 2 hits. So if you don't know, enemies cannot evade twice in a row. Same goes for players as well. No one can evade twice in a row. So essentially, this guarantees that you hit someone. If a dangerous enemy is low on health and you don't want to die, you can use Arrowstorm to guarantee hit them and potentially kill them. So yeah, and that's just the first part. Really good part. Secondly, you get lucky. Lucky is very powerful for rogues, mainly because of the crit chance. So the way lucky works is it'll roll your crit chance, evade, and deflect chance twice and take the best result. And the opposite is true for unlucky. It'll roll those rolls and take the worst result. But lucky will make it so you have a very, very high chance to crit on a typical crit build. Um, the evasion chance is also pretty nice because if you have a fair amount of dexterity, and especially if you're like monk, um, your evasion chance will be pretty high as well. Now, deflect chance not really applicable to rogue that much. I mean, I do have some defense, so I do have a pretty good chance to deflect. But this is, the deflect part. I would say for like the rogue ish classes is mainly for tank monk for the most part, or if you're going like a really beefy bard, I guess too. But yeah, it's mostly for the critical hits and somewhat the evasion. So, and you get that for one turn whenever you use this. So, uh, already a pretty good combo skill. You'll guarantee hit someone, and then you'll get lucky for a turn as well. And it does medium damage. So, what's not to love, right? So that's Arrow Storm. Next is Killing Intent, the final passive. Um, Admittedly, not as impactful as other final passives, and also a little kind of hard to keep up with sometimes, depending on what you're doing. But well, I mean, I say keep up with. It's sometimes difficult to keep the secondary benefit of this, I should say. So whenever you hit an enemy with an attack, you will inflict like an evasion debuff on them. This is a -1 evasion debuff, and it's not really all that impactful, or at least noticeable, because it's just a -1. But to me, I figure, well, one, it only takes 5 points from Aerostorm to get this final passive. But if you really wanted to drop this passive, like if you really want something else that's 5 points away, then we can go for that. But um, enemies in this game are very evasive. I mean, I'm sure you've noticed that by now. If you're at Grand Dungeon, enemies evade a lot, especially or even the more tanky, bulky, and even the mages, like evade a lot. So just kind of reducing that even more, it kind of helps. I mean, it might be placebo at some point, but like every bit helps, right? So when you hit someone, you make it so they evade a little less, right? And then if you hit that same person again consecutively, as it says, you'll get an evasion buff of your own. And this is pretty much permanent. If you keep hitting the same person, it'll last one turn, and you keep hitting them. But if you miss, then it goes away. But it's okay. It's only a +1 evasion buff. It's not going to be the end all be all, right? Like it's not going to matter much in the grand scheme of things. Um, so yeah, that's Killing Intent. Again, not that impactful. Although I will say, if you use Arrow Storm because it hits twice, you can get both of these benefits, like the evasion buff and inflict the evasion debuff on the same turn. And because Arrow Storm gives you lucky, you have a pretty good chance of evading thereafter. So yeah, and that's the Ranger's skills. Also, the Ranger's stats as well. Rangers get one extra attack than the Assassin, Monk, and Bard, which is pretty nice. Again, you need to reach a pretty high attack amount, and having that extra 25 attack, like it helps. They also get agility, which yeah, I think only Ranger and Bard get agility, which is also pretty good. Again, agility might not be the most noticeable thing, but having a lot of agility just passively really helps, because some enemies, or you might outspeed some really dangerous enemies, right? And then of course evasion, because Ranger has a lot of evasion of things, right? So that's Ranger. So next we will go over Assassin, which is kind of if Ranger is the reliable one, Assassin is like the damaging one, the hard hitting one, the real glass cannon, right? So for starters, we have Sneaky Traps. Sneaky Trap is a kind of a gamble, but it's you can kind of make sure you always crit with it sometimes. So um, if you don't crit, you'll do next to no damage. But if you do crit, you'll do huge damage. Huge being the highest tier of damage, like because it goes from light to medium, and then to heavy, and then huge. So you will pretty much one shot most enemies with this skill. Like you won't one shot tanky enemies, right? But enemies that are not classified as tank, yeah, they die in one hit to this, depending on your stats, of course, right? It's a really good skill. Only two uses, but again, it's a gamble skill. You might one shot someone, you might not. It's up to you. I guess that's another good way to describe assassin. It's also kind of the gambling class too. So smoke bomb is a medium fire and air skill, pretty good off the bat already. It has 4 charges, so that having a medium skill with 2 elements and 4 charges is already pretty good. So this gives you a +1 crit chance buff, right? Which stacks with your critical shooting because they are 2 different values. +1 and +2, they both stack. So you will have a slightly higher chance to crit for 1 turn after using it, and also you will inflict unlucky on your opponent, meaning that they have a much less chance to evade your hit. And this is mainly so you can set up a sneaky trap and technically piercing arrow, because this skill, because air is listed as the second element or the last element, it will leave an air blight on your enemy, and so you can elemental burst with sneaky trap, which elemental bursting is a flat multiplier on your damage. So that's the main reason it's there, and that's why it's like that. But to be honest, you could use this as just a general debuff skill, because that unlucky really helps. Now it's not as efficient as just being able to hit someone twice or guarantee hit someone like Arrow Storm. But again, Ranger is the reliable one, right? Also, this skill doesn't, or Assassin doesn't have access to Lucky, which probably for the best, because they're all about crit chance and whatnot. But still, they get a +1 crit buff, so it's not as good as Lucky, but it's at least you get something. And I figured the developer didn't want to just copy paste, Winds of Change. That's what it is, where you get lucky and inflict unlucky. I assume that's what his plan was, just to not copy that skill and put it down here in Assassin. So you still get something, and plus it does medium damage. It has 2 elements, has 4 charges. Overall, pretty good debuff skill. And also it does help set up your water burst nuke skill, I should say. And then you've got your final passive, which is whenever you crit, you get more crit power. So your critical hits will increase your critical hit power. So it's very, well, I wouldn't say negligible, but sometimes you won't really notice when this buff is active or not. You won't really notice a difference. I mean, there is a difference if you pay attention, but sometimes there kind of isn't. I think that has to do with this might be a flat amount of crit power, and most assassins will likely be at like 50 or 60 crit power. So whatever this adds might not make a huge difference, but hey, it's more damage, right? So more free damage at that. So that's assassin. The stats, you get some attack, of course. That's just the standard 3 attack that everyone gets, or most people get. Some people get more. And then 4 crit chance. So 4 crit chance. So assassin has 100 extra crit chance than other rogues. So that's 5% extra crit chance. That's pretty good, honestly. just for being an assassin, you get 5% extra crit. Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. So that's assassin. So monk, the more defensive, evasive one. I forgot monk has crit chance as well, but okay. Well, still. Yeah, monk is all about evading and hitting back and whatnot. A very flavorful class here. So to start, monks have Ox Awareness. Now, this is a really powerful buff skill. It doesn't do any damage because it's a purple skill, right? It's just a buff that you can put on yourself at any time, guaranteed. So first, for 3 turns, you get Lucky, which again we discussed. Lucky is really useful. Doubly so because monks also evade a lot too, or they want to evade a lot as well. So you get 3 turns of Lucky. Now you also get 3 turns of this Lifesteal buff. This Lifesteal buff is, I believe, 30% Lifesteal on all damage you deal. So you will kind of keep yourself alive throughout those 3 turns, essentially. And this does stack with Lifesteal skills. So if you have this up and use Scorching Daggers, you will heal yourself quite a lot. Now, I forget if this could go over the cap, right? Like, if you have enough heal power to where your Scorching Daggers will heal you for 100%, I forgot if you can get more than 100% lifesteal, because these are technically 2 different sources of lifesteal. So if you hit for like 500, are you going to steal for like 700? You know what I'm talking about. I'm not too sure, but really strong buff on this skill. Keep you alive, and then it gives you prominence for 3 turns. Now in solo, this does nothing, so it's just a neutral thing. In multiplayer, prominence means you'll take half damage for like your other allies when they get attacked, which is meant to be kind of a downside, but also kind of for the warrior or tank monk too, because monks are also meant to be tanks as well, because they're part warrior, right? But it's not really all that bad because you can evade redirected damage. So if you have prominence up and someone else gets hit in your party, and you can evade that redirected damage. And also, if there is a tank in your party using a prominent skill, you can use this skill before them because you'll likely outspeed your tank, right? And basically, the tank will get the prominence because only one person in the party can have prominence. So again, very little downside. It could be a little hectic in certain situations in multiplayer, but for the most part, you can kind of ignore that downside. So again, really strong buff skill. Only 2 charges, but I find that's fair because it is a really strong skill. You will have much higher chance to crit, evade, and also be healing yourself a lot with this skill up. So that's that. The next is Monkey Cloud, your nuke skill. It only does heavy damage, but it only does water damage, or it solely does water damage. So you don't have to worry about doing or dealing with multiple elements or damage types. It's just physical water damage. Also, it gives you a +3 evasion buff for 1 turn, which might not seem like much, but one +3, well, +3 buffs in general are really strong, but +3 evasion buff, I believe. Well, if I had to give like a guesstimate, I would say it feels like it boosts your evasion by like, I don't know, 40%. That's just a guesstimate, right? From just playing monk. That's kind of how it feels, an extra 40% evasion chances is really good, to be honest. And secondly, that 1 turn isn't really relevant because of Monk's final passive as well. So yeah, Monk's final passive makes it so that evasion buffs that are about to expire don't expire. So they will stay with you until you evade, and then they go away, right? So if you use like let's say horse stance, you have an evasion buff for 3 turns, right? You can still evade for those 3 turns, and the buff will stay with you. But once it hits 1 turn and you evade, it goes away. And because of how evasion works in this game, sometimes you will just have all 3 evasion buffs up for a while before you actually evade, which I know it can be a little annoying, but do remember that evading an attack means you take no damage at all, and also you don't suffer any debuffs or special effects from those attacks either. So, uh, you know, evasion might not be what's the word I'm looking for? Evasion, you can't really rely on it too much. If that's your only form of defense, you can't really rely on it, I should say. Kind of like Path of Exile. If you're an evasion class, you can't really rely solely on evasion. But still, having like a guarantee evade or having a really high chance to evade for a while really helps. But I do understand, kind of like the Ranger's final passive is not the most impactful thing, because to be honest, I am guilty of this. I don't really keep up with my evasion buffs. I kind of use these skills for their damage type, or their element, I should say, and whatever side benefits they give me. Like Horse Sense give me regen, and that's usually why I use it, as well as just being an Earth skill, things like that. And it just happens to give me evasion too. So if you really wanted to drop Tiger Reflexes, you can, but I would say it complements Monk pretty well. And to leave it off, so monks get the standard 3 attack. They get 1 defense from the warrior side, which is pretty good. You get 50 extra defense for being a monk, which for a glass cannon monk can mean the difference between life and death. So pretty good. You get 2 crit chance, which isn't bad at all. And then of course your 1 evasion because you're a monk. It's all about evading. So overall, the monk, again, pretty defensive, kind of just like a different version of ranger, because ranger is also kind of about evasion. But if ranger is mostly about reliability, monk is about uh, evading and what is defense ability, if that's a word. And then assassin is all about the offense. Now, for bard, I guess I can go over the mixed passive bard. There are, or there is the non-mixed passive crit bard, which I have done before, but bard is kind of meant to be mixed passive. Mixed passive being you have attack and magic. And usually you will have less attack, or like your attack and magic will be lower than if you didn't have mixed passive. So again, like the old example, if you have 1,000 attack, you'll have 1,000 attack, but if you split that evenly between your attack and magic, you'll have 500 attack and magic, and then that gets boosted by mixed passive, so you'll have 825 versus that 1,000, that kind of thing. The main thing with mixed passive is that you can deal with enemies that have certain defenses, so tanks aren't really going to be an issue for you, for example. Things like that. And also having a versatility of different skills and whatnot, because you can use your mage skills as well. It's a whole thing. But if you're going bar, you'll likely have mixed passive, right? So I'll kind of assume you have that. So bard is kind of kind of the D&D trope, right? They can do a lot of things, like most things, really. I think the only thing that a bard can't do is tank efficiently, because they don't get a prominent skill, and that's kind of it. So for starters, we've got Requiem of Spirit, actually. So this is like an AoE heal. It's a pretty weak heal, being a 15% HP heal, but AoE heals are really good in multiplayer. This skill got nerfed like 3 different times because of how good it was. in multiplayer, because a lot of the dangerous enemies, they hit your whole party and whatnot. So, but in solo, for the solo part, it's a pretty weak heal. But if you're a bard, you'll likely have a fair amount of heal power, so it'll heal you pretty decently, just not to the extent of like a druid or anything like that. But it also applies an unhealable debuff on you. This may be scary to you, but don't worry. The unhealable debuff only blocks percent based healing. So if you use Requiem of Spirit, you can't heal yourself with Song of Storms, for example, because Song of Storms uses percent HP based healing, I should say. The unhealable does not block lifesteal, because lifesteal is just special like that, I guess. So you don't have to worry about that part too much. If you're like a rogue mage bard, I guess you could say, like a crit mixed passive bard, you don't have to worry about that at all. And then on top of that, you get 2 turns of lucky, 3 on crit, which is pretty good actually. Kind of like the Ox Awareness from Monk. You get like 2 or 3 turns of it. And like I said before, lucky is really good for crit builds. So there's that. It really all around, it's a pretty good skill to have. If you're needing a heal and you're fighting like a tank enemy and you can't heal yourself off of that tank enemy too well, because lifesteal doesn't heal much off of tanks, just having a free heal kind of helps sometimes. Trying to speak. So the next one is Lullaby. Lullaby is a defense debuff for both defenses, really. It is a purple skill, so it won't do any damage, but it does last for 3 turns on crit, as well as a small evasion debuff as well. But again, that's kind of negligible. The main draw to this skill is just the defense and magic defense debuff here for all enemies. So if you're multiplayer and you're fighting 3 enemies, everyone gets hit by this. So overall, pretty good skill. I do kind of forget to use this sometimes, but I will say it does make Bolero, which is a huge skill that has both physical and magic, very, very, well, dangerous, I guess you could say. It'll, kind of like Sneaky Trap, it'll practically one-shot most things if you use a Lullaby against them first. So that's its main purpose, but a pretty good debuff skill overall. And then the biggest thing about Bard is its final passive. Every debuff you inflict, you get as a buff, right? Again, kind of touted as like the best skill in the game, and thus Bard is also touted as like the best class in the game. I wouldn't quite agree with that much, but it is pretty good nonetheless. So this Lullaby we were just talking about, this will give you a +2 defense and magic defense buff for 2 to 3 turns, as well as a small evasion buff as well. Things like that. Your Song of Storms will give you a magic buff. Minute of the Force will give you a physical damage buff. Things like that. That's why Bard has all these debuffs in its tree, because of its final passive. It turns those into buffs for you, right? And that also applies to any other skills. Like you can get Shield Bash, you can get a +2 heal power buff. A very popular choice is to get Dragon Punch from the Monk, because Dragon Punch, being a really, really good debuff skill, you can give yourself a +3 crit chance buff, which also stacks with your critical shooting, and you can kind of use them interchangeably. Like if your critical shooting is expiring and you're not in a good spot to buff up again, you can use Dragon Punch in the meantime before you can get your critical shooting up, things like that. So again, really powerful skill. And because this class is meant to be mixed passive, it has a lot of base stats as well. So the Bard has 3 attack and magic for the mixed passive, but I believe after they makes passive calculation, you still technically get a bit more damage out of putting points into the bar tree. Then they get agility, which is always nice, an extra crit chance, which is pretty good. But most importantly, they get a free point of heal power. All the other rogue paths don't really get heal power, and heal power is arguably one of the most important stats to a rogue, or any build really. Like it's comparable to crit chance, Like if you had to choose, like if I had to choose between 100 extra crit chance or like 50 extra heal power, I would probably take the heal power because it keeps you alive in solo. And compare that with their passive, which is also really strong, which anyone can get. If you're a rogue or a mage, you can get this guaranteed. These stats here. It makes Bard, even if you're not going all the way into the Bard tree, it does make Bard a rather appealing choice when it comes to your extra 50 points because you get extra crit chance, extra agility, so like a little bit more attack and whatnot, but 55 extra heal power. That is a lot of heal power. I must admit. So yeah, in essence, I mean, do what you want. You can go with the monk and the warrior routes and whatnot, but for me, especially doing solo, I would definitely recommend going into Bard just for the heal power alone. But you also get this really nice debuff skills as well, like Minute of the Forest. But I digress. So that's all the advanced, or the specific rogue trees, I should say. These last three skills that are locked off whenever you pick a path. That's all of them, right? So you can kind of go from there, pick and choose, and the like. So that is the tree. Now, I want to touch on a few things in the Bestiary with the different enemies, and mostly for solo. I don't know if you can. No, you can't sort it by solo, can you? No. Because yeah, all of these like grayed out enemies are from multiplayer, and they're a whole bag of worms on their own. But I'll go over these solo ones first. They're early, some of the more important ones. Not all of them, right? So the four basic enemies of the four different elements, Rocky Pebble, Flame Spark, um, Watery Drop, and Windy Puff. They have a special mechanic to where they will hit you with an element, right? Their corresponding elements, of course. If they hit you again with that element, or if you just have that blight, I should say, that's the word. If you have that blight to begin with, so if you have a water blight and you run into a watery drop, they will use what's called an augmented attack. An augmented attack will hit harder than burst damage, right? So if you walk into a watery drop and you have a water blight, it will hit you harder than if you had like an air blight and it would burst you, that kind of thing. I believe elemental bursts are around 20-25% extra damage, something like that. Augmented damage is like 30, 35, that kind of thing. It's a little bit higher. So in essence, depending on what kind of build you are and what kind of enemy you're running into, and also how soon you're running into them, because on the earlier floors that might not be applicable because they're such a low level that it doesn't really matter, but you might want to change your blight. So every time they hit you, you might want to counter just to get rid of that blight too. I would say the exception being Rocky Pebble, because Rocky Pebble is a tank enemy, and Rocky Pebble doesn't hits for like next to nothing, so you can get augmented pretty safely on that front. Right, so that's that. The Fire Cup will buff up before it hits you pretty hard, so just keep that in mind. It'll heal itself constantly till it buffs up, so it's a small thing. What I see in the Stormy Eye are kind of your glass cannon enemies. I guess I could go over the golem, right? Because it is kind of the most common boss. So golem is a super tanky boss, right? It has a lot of defenses. But it'll go through these cycles every turn to reduce one of the elemental resistances on itself. So it goes from water to fire to earth to air, and you'll have to hit it when when its resistances are down with the corresponding element, um, which can be a little tricky. Which is why I also say to have really good elemental variety, because if you run out of like water and like air skills, something like that, you're gonna have a hard time fighting Golem, because if you don't use those, elemental skills, he doesn't take much damage at all. Secondly, after those 4 cycles, he'll heal like half of its health as well. Well, maybe like a third of its health is like around there, something like that. Which also leads credence to why I say you will want some higher attack in Magic, because of how tanky he has a really high chance of evading one of those 4 hits, because you get 4 hits before he heals, right? So he has a pretty decent chance of evading one of those hits. So essentially, you will kind of want to be able to kill him in 3 turns, 3 hits, which isn't easy for most builds. Now, if you're a rogue with high crit chance, it's not that bad, because you will likely 2-shot him sometimes. But sometimes your critical hits don't work. Sometimes you just don't crit. So something to keep in mind with the old golem. Also, a small thing with Phantom Cores. Phantom Cores kind of throws whatever element you throw at it back at you. So if you use a fire skill, it throw fire at you and also debuff you in a certain way. Do not hit Phantom Cores with air if you're a rogue, right? Because 1, it'll give itself a +3 evasion buff for 1 turn, which is not good. Because this guy hits really hard if you do not hit it with a blight. Like the neutral core does a lot of damage. So that's the first part. Second part, it will inflict a crit power debuff on you, which is devastating for a rogue. It's not quite the crit power -3 debuff like the stunning blow from the warrior tree, but it'll pretty much shut down your crit power. Like, you will barely do more damage when you crit with that debuff on you, and it'll last for like 2 or 3 turns, something like that. So only hit the Phantom Cores if it's like the killing blow with air. Don't only hit with air if it's the killing blow. That's the main thing to worry about with Phantom Cores. So I guess that's all the enemies. Oh, well, I guess I could go over the event chest, which I haven't really ran into on this character, surprisingly. So the event chest works like it'll heal itself and give itself evasion buffs constantly. Once its health gets down to like a third, maybe maybe 40%, maybe, it will bite you the next turn. So essentially, you will try to make it so you can at least 1-shot it. Well, as a rogue, you try to 1-shot it, right? Which isn't that difficult for most rogues. You could hit it with a weak, like if you counter with like a grappling hook or something like that. Just to put an air blight on it. That way, in case you do crit, you're not going to hit so hard that it'll bite you next turn. Things like that, and then you can use like piercing arrow or sneaky trap or monkey cloud next turn, and if it crits, it'll likely just 1-shot the event chest, because the event chest is kind of a glass cannon itself, right? Doesn't have much defense to speak of, so it's pretty easy to 1-shot for rogues. But something to keep in mind in case your critical hits aren't working. Or actually, it bites with water, so if you have an air blight, you might want to change that just in case. It'll put an air blight on you every turn. Well, air and fire, but still, this is something to keep in mind, right? So that's the small things from the bestiary out of the way. For the most part, like you'll pick up on a few other things later on. So also one other big thing I would like to retract from my much older videos when I said that I didn't use food when leveling. Well, I kind of turned that around. Use food when leveling in Grand Dungeon. It helps a lot. It'll help you level up much faster. That's nearly because food is very, very strong. Like this gives me 120 physical defense. That's a lot of physical defense. You need 3 armor pieces to get that much physical defense. And this is just from one food. You can have 3 different food slots, right? So yeah, use food. It'll help you level much faster. And the biggest reason I said I didn't like using food was because of all the grinding you'd have to do for all the ingredients. That's not really a big deal because Grand Dungeon charges every 3 hours. Like, I mean, it can hold 4 charges, but each charge, recharges every 3 hours. So that's plenty of time for you to get some more food and more ingredients and whatnot. And while some of these do have charges of their own, keep in mind the in-game food uses low level ingredients from like floor 1 and 2. Like these birds over here, they're from floor 2. So floor 1 and 2 and like 3, yeah, they recharge really quickly. So you can kind of build up materials while you're waiting for your charges to come back. Something that you can do kind of in the background. Like if you're doing something, mainly you can just kind of like off to the side to sort of go through some of the lower level floors to get some ingredients, essentially. Really helps out. And, but yeah, use your food. Now, of course, being a rogue, you will likely go with your crit chance foods and whatnot. Although it looks like I am out of, yeah, been using a lot of food. I haven't really been grinding that much, but again, these are not that difficult to find for the most part. I mean, the dry mud opal is pretty hard to find because it comes from a boss, and the 3 different bosses for each dungeon floor, right? Well, technically, I guess 5, but still. So yeah, use food. It really, really helps level you up faster because you'll get further in the Grand Dungeon, and yeah, it's pretty much that. So yeah, use food. That's kind of that thing. I suppose I will go into a small run just to show what I'm doing. So my gear here, right? I have 2 sets here, and something that you can do too. Have different sets that do different things, right? So I have like an offense set, right? Something that's all about the critical hits. Having it has as much crit as I can get, right? And then I have like a more defensive sort of lower my crit chance, but give myself a much more attack and defense, and also a little bit more heal power. And I can kind of just go back and forth depending on what I feel like. Do I feel like critting more often, but having less defense and attack, or if like critting less often and having more attack and defense and a little bit more heal power too? Again, in my case, these 2 aren't really that much more efficient than the other, so I can just kind of go whatever I want and use the food accordingly, because like this set doesn't really have much crit chance, so I might want to have more crit food on this set, whereas here my attack is pretty low, so I might want to have extra attack food as well as maybe some like a defense food or something like that, kind of go whichever way you want, right? So I will kind of go take some of these mid-level buffs with me, and let's see. Sure, I'll go with the defense one just to make things interesting. I could probably get some more attack, but whatever. So, before we jump in, something to note about Grand Dungeon. It is Grand Dungeon, and this is Pixel Quest RPG. Very RNG dependent, especially because I'm a rogue. So, don't expect victory every time, essentially. Well, I guess you can't really expect victory at level 80 because you're not really meant to get through the entire dungeon at level 80. I mean, you can if you're extremely lucky, but that's not always the case, right? And also, if you run into an enemy that you don't want to start with, like the Rocky Pebble, I don't want to start with this guy. You can leave for free and come back in, and you'll still keep your charges and your food and whatnot. As long as you don't hit an enemy, you will, you can leave and come back. So watery drop is a little bit better of a first enemy to fight, right? So water drop is weak to fire. It's also a really good enemy to heal with scorching daggers on because weak to fire and physical. So it's pretty much a free healing essentially. It hit me with water, so something I like to do in case I miss, because that does happen. In case I miss, I will counter with a different element, just so I don't it doesn't do augmented damage to me, I should say. Although that might not be as applicable to these low level floors because they're only level 80. I mean, I guess I'm level 80 as well, but I've got defense this time. So Flame Spark, I'll hit you with an air skill. I'll counter so I don't get augmented either. Yeah, it shouldn't be that bad. So I can use maybe just a sneak attack just to burst. There we go. Oh yeah, I've totally forgot to use my critical shooting. Perfect timing. Firewind Shield and Boggy Chubby. They're both tank enemies, so they're not going to hit that hard. And plus, because of their different skills, excuse me, because of their different skills, it's unlikely that they will burst you because they use skills that don't burst off of each other. So, kind of buff on them. Why not? I'll go ahead and use a Hunter's Mark. This is an early room Firewind Shield, so it doesn't have a whole lot of defense, but I just want to kill it pretty quickly. I'll use a Mystical Strike just to heal pretty decently. That's a pretty good hit as well. Song of Storms. Now, I don't have any magic, so it's not going to do much damage, but on the off chance that I happen to deflect. Okay, also the off chance that I might kill it too. I'd say it's a net positive, though. Okay, Golem. Now, Golem, because I'm a ranger, I will definitely outspeed the Golem. And it uses water as its first attack. So I will counter so I don't get bursted, but also put a dot on it. And the reason to do that is just so I can use Slash right after because its water resistance is reduced now. So I can use water. So that's a pretty good hit there. So now its fire resistance is lowered. I kind of want to save these for weaker enemies, but at the same time, I kind of want to go through my Boleros either, because Bolero, even though it's a huge skill, it only does half damage, but it still does about the same as medium. But it's a good skill to throw out there for certain enemies. Okay, Rocky Pebble. Now, because I'm a low-level rogue, I will kind of want to keep my critical shooting up. Now, once you are higher level and you have much more critical chance and critical gear and different skills, you don't need to keep up with your critical shooting all the time. You can kind of go without it for a few turns and whatnot. So, but I'm low level and I'm a Bruiser rogue as well, so I kind of need critical shooting to crit pretty reliably. Rocky Pebble is a tank enemy, so I'm going to kill its defense with the Hunter's Mark, and I'm going to burst heal with Leech Arrow. Pretty good heal there. And then I can finish it off with a Mystical Strike, although I probably should use this too, because, oh yes, something I forgot to mention entirely. When the 4 basic elemental enemies, when the health gets low, they will swan song away, meaning that they just go away, and you still get the experience and whatnot. So I'll use that. It does a little bit of damage because of my critical power. Yeah, so I can get a free heal just before it goes away. A water mirror, a really tanky, reflective enemy. So I can use pretty much anything I want here. I don't want to get bursted because it throws the same element back at you. So I had to counter a few times, but no big deal. Now, later on, in the later done rooms, I should say, water mirrors have a lot of damage. Like a lot of damage. Ridiculous amounts. Oh, excuse me. A frog in the throat. So just keep that in mind. Early on, they're not that bad, but good lord, later on, they hurt a lot. Water drop, a free heal, like I said before. Phantom cores. Alright, well, I am at full health, so I don't have to worry too much here. So I guess I can hit you with an earth skill. A lucky critical hit there. I'll finish it off with an arrow storm, just so I can get that buff going. Oh, excuse me. Man, I knew it was going to happen at some point. The old sinuses and throat messing up. Okay. Buggy Chubby. Buggy Chubby is a tank enemy, but mostly just a mage tank. It does have some physical resistance too, though. Hit you with Sneak Attack just to get your health going. It's weak to air, so that's why. Also, yeah, Buggy Chubby's put this critical power debuff I was talking about earlier. Yeah, they do that all the time as well, so luckily they are mage tanks and not physical tanks, but still, that hurts a lot. And you did Muckfall to yourself, so I can't use Slash to get burst damage. So I'll use Mystical Strike just to get something, or some healing, as well as some damage on you. The old adage of the rogue, you run through your Mystical Strikes like crazy, usually. So the Flame Spark, I will counter just so I don't get bursted. I mean, I won't get augmented, but I don't want to get bursted either, because Flame Sparks do hit pretty hard. And I will risk it for a biscuit and not counter with this. Okay, well, I guess if I did counter, I would still get the full heal. Flame Spark again. Okay. Yeah, kind of running out of skills here, but that's to be expected when you're at level 80, you know. You're not going to have enough skills to get through the entire dungeon. So, just keep that in mind. So I guess I can use the tight spot, I must admit. I'll use this, counter and get a free lucky buff. And then hopefully I will crit with the piercing arrow because of the lucky, yeah. Just a one-shot it. Golem again. Well, I have initiative, I should, so I can use the crit buff and it'll hit me, so that's water. Pretty good hit there. So as long as I can hit it with this, I should be fine. Okay. Getting pretty lucky with the evasion, because enemies usually evade a lot more than this. Well, I guess I am killing them in like a couple hits before they can start evading. So there's that. A watery drop, there to heal any rogue in trouble. Having a good time. Yeah, pretty good heal there. A water mirror. So at this point, because we're on the last leg of the journey, a water mirror will hurt a lot. Like a lot. So I might want to use my last hunter's mark on it, but you know what? No, I'll use poison. Well, that didn't crit. Okay. Well, let's see if we can kill it before it kills us. Now, it may not seem like much, but that's because it's not really doing any critical hits. When it crits, it does a lot of damage. Let me get another lucky buff on my way out as well. So I won't die. Ooh. So this is one of the glass cannons I was talking about. This is the Rogue Bane. The Morning Bolt Icy is the Mage Bane. This guy's the Rogue Bane. And I just used my last Arrow Storm too. That's not good. So I do have Lucky and an evasion buff, so there's a decent chance I will evade the first hit. It is weak to Earth, but I don't have any good Earth skills to use. I don't know if I can one-shot this thing with Mystical Strike, if I crit either. We'll see. Oh, yeah, okay. I got unlucky there, but, that's fine. That's Grand Dungeon for you, really. To be honest, though, I got really far. Usually I did kind of forget to go over the different ranges as well. So, when you're level 80, you're not going to make it all the way through Grand Dungeon. The Grand Dungeon is 16 rooms long. So from leveling like dozens of characters, I kind of have like sort of a general structure for how far they tend to get. So from 80 to 85, your goal will be to get to the second boss, right? Or at least get past the first boss. So get past room 4 and possibly make it to room 8. If you can't make it, that's fine, because it's Grand Dungeon. You're level 80. This is the most difficult it's going to get. It gets easier the further the higher level you get, right? So starting out, just get past the first boss at room 4, and then try to make it to room 8. And if you can get past room 8, then that's great. Keep going. But if you can't, don't feel too bad about it. It's just the way Grand Dungeon works for fresh level 80 characters. So when you're kind of going to 85 to 90, you will kind of want to be able to get past the second boss, right? Reliably, not all the time, but just sort of most of the time. And then try to make it to room 12, the third boss, which might not be as common because room 9 and beyond, that's when the more dangerous enemies start showing up. The Stormy Eyes and the Morning Butt Ices and the Fire Cups, they start showing up after room 8. So, but just try to make it to room 12, and if you can make it past room 12, you get a challenge token, which is used to upgrade the Grand Dungeon equipment here. So, something to keep in mind with that, but don't feel too bad if you can't make it past room 12 at level 90. It happens. I mean, some level 100 characters can't make it that far half the time because of RNG, right? Or, their build is mostly for multiplayer and not really made for solo play, essentially. So 90, at least make it to third boss. And then from 90 to 95, try to make it past room 12 reliably, like most of the time, and try to, make it to room 16. Now, if you can't beat room 16, which is, the fourth boss, that's fine. But just a goal, really. And also, well, when you're level 100, you'll hopefully be getting to room 16 reliably at that point, but again, RNG, you could have like 3 Stormy Eyes back to back, who knows? So, so that's Grand Dungeon leveling for rogues, mostly. I mean, I did go over a lot of things that could be for just general guide to Grand Dungeon, to be honest, but it's mostly for the rogue side. So, this was the rogue leveling guide. I don't think I'd be doing this for the mage and the warrior because they're pretty straightforward and also pretty easy to level as. The rogues have it hard. They have it rough. Especially if you're trying to do mixed passive rogue, if you're not a bard, like mixed passive assassin, difficult to level up from experience, I will say. Also, well, on that point with, I know this is mostly for just Grand Dungeon leveling, but leveling in general, if you want to level faster, one, you can do multiplayer because multiplayer doesn't require or doesn't have charges. There's no cooldown to multiplayer at all. And you can do it solo with the AI bots as well. And then there is the arena. The arena will give you experience. Now, you will also likely be fighting AI bots because this game isn't as active as it once was. So, yeah, it gives you experience. And you won't be using your character to fight because you're not level 100 yet. But, if you want to just do something um, while your Grand Dungeon portal is charging, you don't feel like doing multiplayer, you can kind of do arena. So, well, that's that. Yeah, this was kind of messy on my end, kind of unscripted off the top of the head. So I might have forgotten a few things. So if I have something specific that I missed, you can join the Discord. It's up here in the settings at the very top, the get in touch part. And just ask me anything over there or, anyone else, to be honest. There's a lot of good veterans still skulking about in the Discord. So yeah, that is all the old rogue leveling. I suppose I shall see you around. Ta ta for now.